Hey everyone, this is Fernando doing another video for More Survivalists. In this case, replying to a question by one of you guys, YouTube viewer. Thanks guys, those of you following the channel, especially those that subscribe. I really appreciate all your support. Asking about my recommendations for New York City knife. New York City has very tough knife laws. Basically, you're looking at the following. It's illegal for you to have anything beyond 4 inches, so the blade has to be under 4 inches. It should not lock, so no locking blades, no locking mechanisms of any kind, liner lock, back lock. The blade should not lock. Then it has to be concealed. You should not have it with a pocket clip or visible in any other way, not even a little bit of the knife, nothing. One of the most common problems people in New York with their knives have been seeing is that they get stopped because the police officer sees the clip in their pocket, and that's enough for them to get into trouble. Besides that, you cannot have anything in terms of automatic knives, flick knives, gravity knives. Those things are also no-go. Another thing that I've been reading about many of the horror stories of people having problems in New York is that the police officer starts flicking the knife and seeing if he can get it to open on its own automatically, or just by gravity, just using their hand twist motion. It will depend a lot on the police officer in question. Maybe if the police officer does this, he grabs any knife, you grab it like this by the blade and you flick it. In that regard, it is a gravity knife in terms of how you opened it, just like flicking using gravity. Will the police officer be that much of a troublemaker, trying to use a knife in a way it's not intended to, just to prove a point of some sort? It will depend greatly on the particular police officer involved. But the law basically goes down to that. Under 4 inches, nothing automatic or gravity, non-locking, and not visible. Something even like this, for example, a little a keychain knife. Just carrying it on your keychain, that alone makes it illegal, even if it did not lock. And this one does lock, so that's even worse. It has yet another thing against it in the city of New York. Right? So this would not be legal because it does lock, and you would be carrying it visible maybe on your keychain. Of course, same thing here with a cold steel, something like this. Locking mechanism, no. Pocket clip. Again, one of the most common things, one of the most common scenarios that I've been reading about lately is just that. Someone that gets stopped because they saw the clip of their knife in their pocket. The New York City police officers are clearly looking for that. When they see someone with a pocket clip, they check him out and find the knife. Then there's, one of the problems with all these crazy knife laws is that they eventually clash with this thing called what it is, the reality of the world we live in. The reality of the world we live in says that we have knives all around us basically all the time. Knives are available in stores, even in restaurants you will find knives. What would happen, for example, with a chef in New York City? Would he have problems? Well, that's where all these laws have a gray area of some sort. The intent of what you're doing also comes into play. Even if you have a legal knife in New York, if you're intending of using that as a weapon, that's making it illegal. And I have an excellent example of this. There was a vehicle gets stopped by a police officer, 2 or 3 people in that vehicle. The police officer sees through the window, he sees a box with a few steak knives, like ordinary kitchen steak knives. And he says, "What are those knives for?" And the guys reply, "Well, we were having problems. There was this gang that was threatening us, and we were worried about our security, so we have those knives for protection." The police officer arrests these folks. If they had answered instead, "We're moving one of our friends. He's leaving his apartment, moving to a new place, and we're taking some of his kitchen stuff, and this we still have to take over there. We still haven't moved it yet," that would be completely different, and that would not be illegal. But explaining an intent of using the knife as a weapon, that makes it illegal. The example of a chef, that's why there has to be this gray area, because if not, how would you, for example, move around with kitchen supplies that you buy in a grocery store, in a supermarket, from there to your home. You buy your knives for dinner, for your kitchen. You're transporting them. You're committing a crime? No, you're not committing a crime there. Would a chef that gets stopped, a chef that works in a fancy restaurant in New York, maybe he has a case with some expensive chef knives that cost, you know, quite a bit of money, and he has 4 or 5 9-inch fixed blade knives. If he gets stopped by a police officer, right? Police officer asks, why is it that you have these knives? And he explains, I'm a chef, I work in this restaurant, and I have these knives because that's what I do for a living, actually. That would be, in most cases, and there's always never 100% reassurance or anything. In most cases, any police officer will find that understandable and see that there's no crime being committed. Now, that doesn't stop maybe a rookie, maybe someone that has an agenda or isn't very smart, by taking that guy in, oh, you still have knives and this. Well, most unlikely that situation would not go beyond that, but there's always a possibility. In general, with a police officer that is understandable, like most police officers actually are, it would make sense, and any reasonable explanation such as that one would work. But going back to what I was being asked, what is it that I would recommend? Well, here we have the problem of not being able to have something in clipped to your pocket. So something like this, which is actually a UK legal knife, because it's under 3 inches, does not lock, and well, basically that works in that way. The problem here is that since you don't have the possibility of using the clip, you're somewhat limited as well. So this knife would be legal being just kept in the pocket. All right, you keep it just in the pocket on the inside, but not clipped, because remember, not visible. Then it would work. Besides that, I think that I would go, if you're asking for my recommendation, I would go for a Victorinox knife of some sort in the city of New York. Has a little bit more tools, and you know, since you cannot even have it handy with a clip like that, then this is maybe something that makes more sense to me. This is actually the German Army knife that I carry every once in a while, which is a good option. Under 4 inches, definitely does not lock, and you would keep it in your pocket, not clipped. So this would be an alternative. More typical Swiss Army knives. This is my son's for camping and that sort of thing. Has a blade, has some other tools as well in there. Good general little Swiss Army knife, or even like the soldier, more stylish for maybe when wearing a suit or something like that. Still, you have a decent blade in there. Pretty strong. Now, you cannot go crazy or anything like that because these do not lock, so it's kind of dangerous, you know, for doing some more demanding jobs with a non-locking knife or a non-fixed blade. But these would be some of my recommendations. Find a nice Swiss Army knife that works for you. One final little tip, given that you're in the city of New York, you have these restrictions. Besides this, I would have one of these. One of these, depending on how much stuff you see yourself carrying, even just in the keychain, having a small Pico Pry Bar like this one. You can find these on Amazon, I suppose, eBay as well. Something like this means that you have a tool for leverage, for scrapping, for all those things that a more delicate knife like the Swiss Army knife would not be as good. You can do some limited prying with the screwdriver of your Swiss Army knife. It's solid enough for a limited amount of that. But for something more demanding, a little bit more abuse, yes, at least something like this in your keychain so as to work in combination with your knife. Even better if you have enough space, or your dress, the kind of way you dress allows for it. Even better, something like this. A little pry bar allows you for prying all those things that you wouldn't feel comfortable risking. Your Swiss Army knife, a little bit of prying, scrapping, even some limited amount of cutting with this sharper end for opening boxes and that sort of thing. So this is, guys, my recommendation for someone in the city of New York in terms of knives and working around and along with the knife laws that you have over there. Guys, that's basically it. As always, remember to subscribe. Have a great day. See you on our next video.